everybody. Welcome to the War Room. When I decided to put things in this war room, I gathered all the material that I had and accumulated it over the years. It really started out as an exercise room, but I refer to it as a war room. And maybe decided that maybe we ought to keep it somehow intact, because when I'm gone, it'll all be dissipated and people will take one piece, a piece there. This way we'll have it all together and be available to the family. So welcome to Lester Bornstein's War Room. I was drafted right from after I graduated high school in 1943, and I was part of a combat engineer battalion, most from New England boys, and combat engineers were a rough bunch of group who were taught how to deal with mines and demolition. But I think I could best tell you about the war room, tell you where I ended up. I trained in Camp Carson, Colorado, right at the foot of Pikes Peak. I can't tell you how many times we hiked up that peak, but it was grueling hardship, always with 90 pounds on your back, and all kind of marches and all kind of demolition work. And then when we finished, we were sent to maneuvers down in Tennessee, and I think, unknown to us, we were being prepared for D-Day, for the invasion of France. We landed really in England, in Wales, and we trained there. But because we had a man my unit, who had developed spinal meningitis, we didn't come over to England in accordance with the time schedule for D-Day. And because of that, my unit was replaced by another unit and combat engineers. Those combat engineers were part of the first wave of D-Day and suffered tremendous losses. The man who died, and when I think of his name, is Frank Calusi. It was in the article in the Army Times how Frank Calusi's death resulted in our unit being isolated for 2 weeks at Camp Shanks, New York, and replaced with another unit. So we never participated in D-Day. So this day, Frank Calusi, because of his death, resulted in the savior of many of our lives of my unit. When I came out of the service in 1945, I went to college and became a student at Boston University, and I majored in physical education. And I became a distinguished military graduate and became a second lieutenant, offered me a second lieutenancy in the regular Army, which I took, distinguished military graduate, in 1949, and was assigned to Walter Reed Medical Center as a coach, as an athletic director, and I played baseball. On the wall, there's a poster. When I went into the service in 1949, and right after that, the Korean War broke out, and I was sent to Korea, where I opened up a station hospital, taking care of the wounded out of Busan, Korea, right at the bottom island of Japan. And I ran that hospital as assistant director for 3 years. U.S. Army Hospital, Sasebo, Japan. I was a second lieutenant. Now on this wall is a citation where I got a citation from World War II, and there's a buddy of mine on the right who graduated high school from me, and we came out of the war together. And over here is a commendation from the Army for my job, for my work in Japan. On this wall also is a very interesting thing. Is a thing that was sent to me as a gift. is a plaque with Eisenhower's speech about D-Day. I'm going to play it.
Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
There's this picture here of guys in a boat. That's a wooden boat, and the people that are crouching are infantry people for the 89th Infantry Division. You notice they're ducking, but they don't show that each boat had 3 rowers, 2 in front, 1 in back. Those are the combat engineers. They didn't duck. They didn't have the ability to, they couldn't duck because of machine gun fire. But we took them across the river. They were infantry, brand new infantry division, 89th Infantry Division. Also on this wall are some other photos. And then there's a picture of right after the war with my unit and some of my buddies. But this picture here was taken prior to the Bulge. And many of these men here got killed and were prisoners of war for the German counter-offensive in 1944. Also on this wall are 2 very important awards, 2 Bronze Stars for heroism. On the left-hand side here is a Bronze Star for crossing the Rhine River. I crossed that Rhine River 3 times. No one ever did that. And under fire. I had crossed the Rhine River, and I came back, and they told me I had to go back again, and I did it twice. And when I came back the second time, I climbed up on the edge of the water, up on the bank, and fell fast asleep, and the sun broke out, and a new battalion commander that we had just received kicked me in and he says, we need someone to go again. I said, I just went across. I was extremely exhausted, and I went across the river. 2 boats went across the river. 2 boats. I took a boat, the sun was shining, and the boat beside me, maybe a couple hundred yards away, was machine gun and went down. How I lived through that, I'll never know. But that story of the Rhine River will live in memory because it was towards the end of the war. And we took across the 89th Infantry Division, and that unit we lost a lot of men, drowned and killed. I have to tell you a little bit about this crossing the Rhine River because you don't hear too much about it because it occurred towards the end of the war, March, and it was Patton's desire to get to Berlin before Montgomery. And I don't think that necessarily had to be crossed because the war was in late March 25th, as you recall. The war ended in May, but the Rhine River had already been breached by our unit at Remagen area. A bridge had been captured, and we crossed the Rhine River north of us, so that our crossing was useless, didn't have to happen, and we lost a lot of men, unfortunately. And then I received the Bronze Star for knocking out a German tank that were trying to recapture St. Vith. Over here are some accommodation ribbons that go along with it. There are also awards, but they don't take the place of a Bronze Star. Up here are my badges as a corporal at war's end, World War II. And I went into service in 1949 as a second lieutenant in the Medical Service Corps. I stayed in the service and stayed in the reserve and retired as a major. And all these medals here are show the medals that I fought during the war. And there were 5 campaigns, and very bitter campaigns. We lost a lot of men during periods of times of certain battles. The Battle of the Bulge was the most severe, along with the crossing of the Rhine River. I also want to mention a picture here of a buddy of mine who should not be forgotten, who participated with me in knocking out a tank as the day approached St. Vith. That's a story in itself. But that knocking out the tank, the lead tank, coming up the road to St. Vith, saved St. Vith, because St. Vith was an ultimate objective of the German army, so they could separate the Americans from the English, and look for them, hopefully to join them and fight against Russia, which was Hitler's idea. But this picture here shows my buddy Jimmy Hill, who grew up in Massachusetts, as I did. And he's the one that shot the tank. I was the one that loader. That's a story in itself. But Jimmy and I were very, very, very close. And I owe my life to Jimmy Hill. Here's the tank, kind of a tank we knocked out coming up the road. We killed this German leading the tank. We killed 3 people in this tank and stopped the whole onslaught onto St. Vith. This is an extremely important letter written by a general to me personally and to Jimmy. Jimmy got one too. And it says that the action at St. Vith, with a German objective to capture that city within 24 hours, was stopped by 2 men. That was Jimmy Hill and myself. And no one really knows it, but it says is, you are responsible. Your generation gave us an opportunity to beat the Germans back and to stop their offensive in the Battle of the Bulge. This also on the wall, established at it's put up at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, and it contains all the names of my unit. Many of those people were killed during the Battle of the Bulge or lost during their service in Europe. Permanently installed at what used to be Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Now this monument above it is a monument we put up in St. Vith, being maintained with decorations because our unit played such a vital role in the defense of St. Vith. And I was the main speaker. I'm over here. Right next to me is Jimmy Hill. Over here is a picture of my daughters, who were prominent in their respective fields of work, and my picture of 75th birthday. The picture over here is a picture of my son, who was a war correspondent. He served in the Israeli army as a paratrooper. There's an article about my son, who was a famous author. He became the ambassador from Israel to the United States, and he's written so many books. But one of the big books was The 6-Day War. Became a bestseller. He's had a couple of other bestsellers since that time. And over here on the right-hand side of it is a wooden sculpture sort of thing of my brother Joe, who was a colonel, who played a big part in my life. He was a regular Army medical officer who ran a hospital prior to the war, and very, very, very famously, all during World War II and the Korean War. He got a Legion of Merit. Lining along the wall are pictures that were set up when I retired. Showed me that I played basketball. I was a coach, high school, played a lot of tennis. And there's a picture of me over here as a youngster. My sister always showed me off as a young kid, but she was always parading me. And then there's a picture of me here when I was down in Sasebo, Japan, at a hospital. And I was altogether at Beth Israel for 40 years. I ended up as director of the hospital for the last 30 years. It was the love of my life. There were 800 people at Ellis Island at my retirement. This is an American helmet. It has nothing to do with the war, but it was given to me because they knew that the group of people here, there were a group of people who were involved with me. They knew I was involved with World War II, gave me that as a present. And I was growing flowers. Right now it's not doing so well. But anyway, that's right there. There's a picture there. And here I keep a library of all the books that I've had about World War II. Now over here is something very, very distinctive. I had in June 14th of this year a call for the French government saying that they want to bestow upon me a Legion of Merit. And we had a big affair on June 14th at the local Jewish Community Center, in which a lot of people were invited. But over on this wall is a picture of the medal and the award. Now over here, down below here, are two articles. One, the Jewish News, front page covering that ceremony, and the front page of the Ledger covering that ceremony. It's very, so I had them, just had them done. I think they tell the whole story so well. From the Jersey Hospital Association, from the Beth Israel, various articles, various accommodations that I just put up on the wall. I belong to a unit, to the Veterans of the Battle of the Bulge Society, Battle of the Bulge Association, and we meet at Piccadilly every month. And these are people who had served during the Bulge. But as time goes on, like everything else, we were suddenly seeing a diminution of people, and they've kept the unit now for people who were associated, whose fathers or uncles or relatives were involved in the Battle of Bulge. There are very few of the veterans left. I am one of them. James Mamone, he was in his 30s. He was like a father to me. And here he is over here with a mustache. This is after the war, and he came from Leominster, Massachusetts, a great soldier, and didn't have very much of an education, and he depended upon me a lot to do a little bit of his writing and so forth. But he became a sergeant. He was a very good soldier, and he helped me a lot during the war. Here's a picture down here of my mother, who died at 100. She came here when she was a young girl in her teens and sewed buttons for $3 a week. That's how she raised her children. And she had five children, 4 boys and a girl. The 4 boys were all in the army. 2 boys became doctors, were very highly educated. And my father died at an early age, so she was a widow bringing up the older children. That's my daughter Karen. I know when I'm die, I know all this stuff will be put away in someone's attic. I just want to be able to keep it as together so that the whole family, I said it before, could see it all together before it's taken off the walls. It means a lot to us, and it means a lot to the family. And to my wife, Marilyn. I married her when I came back out of the service in 1948. I owe a lot to her in my further growth, going to college and becoming my second period of service prior to the Korean War and during the Korean War. She had a birth of her baby, of our firstborn. Shortly after I left, I didn't see that Aura, that my daughter, for a year and a half before a year and a half while I was gone, when I was running a hospital. We couldn't bring dependents over to Japan. But she came over, drove across country with a baby with another driver to get a freighter, which she then took a freighter to Japan, a freighter. For 14 days and 4 nights, she said she was sick for 14 days and 14 nights on a freighter. And I met her in Yokohama, and I met her on that boat. I climbed the side of the boat. I climbed up the side of the boat, and I saw my baby and my wife for the first time. For a year and a half, I didn't see my wife and I never saw this baby. But the baby called me, saw me, and said, "Daddy." I was so thrilled till I found out she called everybody on the boat Daddy. French people, in the 50th anniversary of D-Day, invited veterans to come to live with them. I went there to live with, I stayed with a family, and they were unbelievably good to us. And this stuff that came, they were in this book. Here's a graveyard. Look at this. All papers are full of how the Americans suffered. Welcome. Telling us it's 50th anniversary of D-Day. Is that Clinton? Yeah. Look at this. Mercy, thank you. Thanks to all the girls from Paris. Land in France. Cherbourg area. Grave is underway. Oh, that I told you the story about Frank Calusi. This is the Netherlands Jubilee. Look at this. Lester Bornstein. They gave us a certain medal. They got kissed here by the French consulate, giving us a medal for the invasion. These are all different things these come from me. These are propaganda throughout England, telling the people not to move their children, leave the children where they are. They don't want the children, and they want to move them out of the city so they wouldn't be killed. Or they told them how to walk instead of don't depend upon transportation, or how to use your kitchen waste. Every German soldier had one of these. Not automatic. You put the shell in here, and you load it, and you fire it. These are ceremonial swords that my brother Joe brought back. I didn't bring them back, but he brought them back. And these were used for ceremonial purposes. And this one over here, probably from World War I, the same thing. So this is my war room. My war room brings back a lot of memories. We've had a lot of reunions. All these men in my unit are gone now. We've had a lot of them over the years. And we were very, very... our loyalty and our esprit de corps for my unit, the 168th, was very, very strong. And I'm glad we served our country. I'm glad we served our country. And I give my memory to all my buddies who gave their lives and did their duty to keep our country safe. And I want to say one thing to all of you here, is that a lot of people have given their lives to make America safe. Let us not forget about all those people who are lying in graveyards in Europe and in the Pacific, who made this possible for our country to be together again. We should be a country coming together. We should not throw it away. And the last item I want to say for all of us is, in simple terms, is God bless America.